We will continue. I have been talking about the midlife crisis. So let me continue. People in midlife crisis are already occupying position of importance and position of leadership. If they are religious, men and women, they are already superiors and formators. They are men and women of influence, and for secular people, they have established a place in the community. Externally, they are very prim and proper, and they are very careful with the image that they project to people. They are observant of the rules and faithful to comply with their spiritual duties. They are very zealous to help others, especially the poor, and often they work for a cause. They are good and trustworthy. But the problem is, as Saint Teresa said, they are attached to power, to false securities, such as their position, their good name, their material possession, and meaningful relationship, honor, and influence, because they identify themselves with them. They have very little self-knowledge because deep down they are very proud and self-righteous. They think they have all the right to criticize, but they cannot be criticized. They believe they are beyond reproach. They are very good in preserving their good image to the public. They are external in their prayers and in their work and achievement. They want to be recognized. Much emphasis is given to externalism because they have very little depth. Usually, they use their activities to escape moments of silence and solitude because they are very scared to face themselves. Usually, the call to let go of this externalism and false securities and to face oneself happen in midlife. That's why these people are in crisis. They are at the crossroads in their life. To hold on to one's false securities, such as power, or to answer God's call to let go, to go deeper in order to discover one's true and beautiful self. Aside from the problem of physical changes that is taking place in the person, they are experiencing dryness in their prayer and meaninglessness in their relationship with God. So prayer becomes burdensome. Their relationship with their loved ones also become problematic. Why? Because many of the negative traits in their personality that were buried in their unconscious are now surfacing in their conscious mind. In order that the unconscious traits can be integrated in the conscious and they become mature, balanced, integrated person. At this point, their needs are harder to deal with, so they try to fill it up with many distractions like work, indulgence with their self-centered hobbies. The emptiness is created by God in their hearts. One has to understand that at this point of one's journey, the search is not outside of oneself. It is not the time to give in to one's egoistic needs. Rather, it is a time for silence, solitude, and prayer. Now God is calling the person to go deeper in order to discover their true and beautiful self. To let go of one's false securities that they identify themselves with. It is a time to reevaluate their values and look deeply into their lives and ask deeper questions. Is this really what I want in life? Is this all that life can offer? There is an emptiness, insecurity, loneliness, and dissatisfaction that one cannot understand, in spite of the seeming success in their life. They are searching for something or someone to fill up the emptiness within. Very often, they do not know what they want and what they are seeking for. They are confused and ambivalent. All these sufferings are actually caused by the inflow of God's action in them, breaking through their human consciousness into the divine consciousness, so that they will be transformed and will discover their identity in God, their true and beautiful self. They are now experiencing the next stage in their life, the passive night of the senses, as John of the Cross would identify it. If they have not been faithful to live the discipline that they experience at the outset of their journey, they will find this stage very difficult, because now it is their deeper needs, both emotional, psychological, and spiritual, that are clamoring to be filled. If they give in to them, the process will be delayed and prolonged. But if they face themselves, their false self, their hang-ups and insecurities, and go through the painful process without escaping or running away, slowly the action of God increase. His purifying action transformed the person in love. They are being processed by God Himself, showing them in His own light their weakness, their sinfulness, and their limitation and powerlessness. Very different from the picture they have of themselves previously. Are they willing to accept the challenge? To let go of all the obstacles to their journey within? Are they willing to leap into the unknown and take the risk of leaving familiar, comfortable zone and walk through unfamiliar path never trodden before? Will they allow themselves to be unmasked from their false self in the painful process of the dark night and let God's purifying action transform them? In midlife, they reach the peak of the mountain. So now, they can see both sides of the mountain. When one reaches the top, there is no other way but to go down. Are they willing to let go of their false self, their false securities that they identify themselves with, such as power, friendship, or whatever God is asking? Or will they continue to hold on to them? If they refuse to take up the challenge to let go of them, slowly the peak will become a plateau. They remain in the third level of prayer and will slowly live a meaningless existence. There will be no radical transformation in their life because God respects our freedom. He does not force anybody. These persons continue to experience the insecurity and emptiness of the midlife. Life for them will slowly become mechanical and empty. They will continue to struggle the weaknesses of the midlife as it even grow more as they grow older. They become rigid, insecure, cynical, attached to externals, and difficult to deal with. They become sour and negative with life. Although they search for satisfaction outside of themselves to fill up their emptiness, they cannot find it because many of their personal disorder and insecurities and values that they hold dear before will now bother them. Many of them will become the problem of their families and their communities. While if they accept the challenge and allow God to lead them into the nights of facing themselves, they will come face to face to experience their powerlessness and the power of God's love embracing them. God will now take over their lives, and from the ashes of their false security will rise a new, transformed person, their true and beautiful self. They will experience interior freedom because become balanced, mature, and integrated person who know themselves. They will experience personally God's transforming power in their lives. They will walk in the truth of who they are and who God is. Receive the gift of contemplation, the gift of wisdom, and the gift of humility. These persons will be used by God for the spread of His kingdom in ways no one can imagine. Yes, they can now say with St. Paul, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me. Now, this is the challenge of many of us, whether you are in the married life or in the religious life. We do not understand that all of this really is undergoing the dark night. It is really God that is purifying us. But let me first explain what are the things that God needs to purify and what are we going to do about it. Now, St. John of the Cross is talking about the active discipline. Now, let me explain. If you are a person who is always, no matter what your woundedness here, maybe you need affection, maybe you need assertion, maybe you need affirmation, these are all our insecurities. So therefore, we will really long for it. Now, John of the Cross said, right from the beginning, when you become aware that this is your weakness, he has a whole process of what he calls the active discipline. The active discipline means it is I who will discipline myself. Because later on, in the passive dark night, it is already God who will discipline you. But now, in the active discipline, it is something like this. First of all, he said, fix your eyes on Jesus. Because you cannot die to yourself unless you fall in love with someone. So he said, fix your eyes on Jesus and try to imitate Him in all His ways. Why? Because He wants us to fall in love with Jesus. He calls this active because I am the one who will discipline myself. Today, this is very easy because more or less we know our issues because we have psychology. Many of us we have also what we call the personality development. You know, the personality development are habits that we form because that is how we were formed by our parents. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. There are people who are really perfect. They are very perfectionist. Why? It is because their parents had been telling them all the time to be careful, not to do this, not to do that, and all of that. So, all the time, they are trying to be perfect. Why? Because they feel that they are not loved unless they are perfect. And so, what happens now? The moment they are married, they will be perfectionists with their children also. And even in the spiritual life, they will always seek perfection. Now, to be perfect is not bad. But for a person who has been trained, this is his area of selfishness. This is the area that he is compulsive Therefore, this is the area that she has to die to herself. Now, John of the Cross, first of all, said, meditate on Jesus. And it is here that reading the Gospels and reflecting on the Word of God is very necessary. Why did John of the Cross say that? Because he wants us to fall in love with Jesus. And when we fall in love with Our Lady and with Jesus, it is much easier. So, the first thing that he said here is, he said, fix your eyes on Jesus and try to imitate Him in all His ways, bringing your life in conformity to His. You must then study His life in order to be able to behave in all events as He would. So therefore, this is really why does He want us to do that? Because if we all the time read and reflect and meditate on the gospel or the Bible, in order to know Jesus and to fall in love with Him. This love will lead us to imitation, and this love will lead us to intimacy and friendship. Now, it is here that I always tell married couples, or even if you're single, try also to influence those you are in love with to really, really read the gospel and try to imitate what our Lord is doing. Train your children to be close to Jesus, especially today that the world is so insecure. If they have a friend who is always with them, then they are safe. There are many children today that commit suicide. Why? Because they feel so alone. But if they have Jesus as their friend, they are in safe hands. Now, the reading of the gospel should really be, you try to connect it with your life. So John of the Cross said, you look at Jesus, do whatever He likes and all of that. So I will share with you how, when you are in the dark night, how you really lead the gospel. I think Jesus has many dark nights in His life. But the greatest of all His dark night, I think, was the night before His passion. Now, you look at this in the Gospels about Mark and whoever, the Gospel that you are looking at is, they were at the Last Supper. And then He said, one of you is going to betray me. And so they said, who is that? Many of us, who of us did not experience betrayal with friends? All of us have experienced. But then, let me look. How did Jesus behave towards His betrayal? He said, one of you is going to betray us. And everybody said, who can be that one? And all of that. Look at His actuation. He did not say anything against Judas. He simply said, the person whom I'm going to dip the bread. For they said that this is a sign that you are my friend. Now, I look at myself, when people betray me, what do I do? Am I really like Jesus? Do I not speak against people who betray me? Then I am very far from Jesus. So John of the Cross said, look at Him and try to imitate Him in all His ways. After that, they already, Judas left. And then for the first time, Jesus said, my soul is sorrowful unto death. If you really translate that in modern terminology, I translate that. And maybe it is something like, I am so depressed that I want to die. All of us have experienced what it means to be betrayed by friends. And Jesus experienced it. And after that, they sang hymns. Look at all of this that he's doing. How to ease his pain. All of us experience all of this. But what do we do? How to ease his pain? They sang hymns. You know, hymns will help us to change our thought patterns. You sing beautiful hymns in your mind to get out that very depressive thought. Those thoughts that will make you do things that are wrong. Jesus did it. And after that, he invited his friends to go out. His friends. So that means he has friends. We need friends in our life. Friends who are close to us, whom we can share. And then they went out. Where did Jesus go? They did not go to the Majungan. They did not go to all of this, to drink and all of that, because these are escapes in the dark night. That's why we never go out of the dark night if you escape. He went to pray. He went to pray. But then, if you notice, when they reached the Garden of Gethsemane where they will pray, he told the three, you stay here and I'll go ahead. Jesus knew that he needs to face what the Father is going to share with him, that we call the dark night, alone. Now, if you are in a genuine dark night, it's either you imagine or it is really true that no one understands you. No one. You are all alone. No one. Jesus experienced that. He knew he cannot share with his friends. And the first thing that he did there was, Father, if it is possible, let this chalice pass from me. How human is the heart of Christ. It is just that saying, Father, I cannot. Let this go away. It's so painful. How many of us are like that? Why, Lord? Why I? Jesus experienced that. He continued to pray. And later on, he could not bear it. He went to seek for his friends who could support him. But as I said, if it is a dark night, no one. His friends were sleeping. So he went back. When he went back there, he continued to pray. And it is said that he sweated blood. Because of the intensity of his suffering, he sweated blood. It is the same prayer. Father, if it is possible, let this pass from me. I cannot. Then again, he went to seek for his friends. They are still sleeping. And then the third time he did it, and then he told them, pray that you enter not into temptation. I honestly believe that he was not telling that to the apostles because they were still dreaming, they were still sleeping. He was telling that to himself. He was reminding himself to pray more. To pray more. That you enter. Maybe at that point, Jesus was almost giving up, just like all of us in our dark nights. And he continued to pray until he reached a very deep level that he was able to say, Father, not my will, but thy will be done. At that time, Jesus is out of the dark night. Situation does not change. He became free. And he was able to meet his executioners. In our dark nights, no matter what are our sufferings, no matter what are our experiences, go to the gospel. Learn from Jesus why John of the Cross said, so that we will be able to act the way he acted, to talk the way he talked, and we will get all the values of Jesus. Why? Because the values of Jesus are very different from ours. We like money, Jesus chose poverty. We like honor and power. He chose to be no one, to be executed and all of that. So his values are very different from ours. How are we going to change our minds and our hearts unless we constantly look at him in the gospel? Fill our minds with his life and his mysteries, and to take on the value system of Jesus. Now, because I'm talking about contemplation in the context of the Filipino culture, I will talk about, John of the Cross did not say this in his book, but as a Filipina, I'm going to tell this to you. Meditate on the life of Mary in the gospel. Because if Filipinos are contemplatives, we are Marian contemplatives. If you look at the history of our people, many times Mary intervened in the life of our people. You know, when you are, for example, dreaming that somebody is running after you, somebody is trying to kill you, and then you shout a name that you really know would be able to help you. That is already very deep in the unconscious. You know from your unconscious that this person can help you. Now, I always look at our greatest suffering during the people power event. During those times that we really do not know what to do. What came out in the Filipino unconscious? It was Mary's songs, it was Mary's emails, and it was Mary's prayer. That is why that first people power was really a genuine experience of God, of the Filipino people. It was genuine. But why have we not changed? That is why, if we do not change, there will be more and more and more dark nights until we will change. Because God loves us and He is not going to give up. He is going to transform us. Now, you know, I look at our heroes in the Philippines. Rizal. You know Rizal? I have seen the movie Rizal because I like to look at movies. And I noticed that when Rizal was about to be executed, the whole family were praying the rosary. And then little by little, the camera focused on the hands of Rizal. It was a rosary. He is our national hero. Ninoy Aquino died with a rosary in his hands. So I always believe that we can be saved through the power and prayer of Mary, our mother. So in our life of dark nights, we need to look at Mary. Now, as we look at Jesus in the gospel, there are two outstanding values that comes out. His communication with the Father, his life of prayer. It is said in the gospel that Jesus, after a hard work, busy day, he go up to the mountain to pray and commune with his Father. And then secondly, because of this, he was able to do the will of his Father. Now, Saint Teresa of Jesus was asked, what is holiness? He said, no, it's very simple. He said, it is listening and doing the will of God every moment. Now, if we listen and do the will of God every moment, then we are holy people. But as I said, we cannot listen because we have all our hang-ups and we think it is God talking to us, but yun pala, it's our desire to do this or our desire. That's why it takes long hours of prayer to really know what God wants of us. We need to pray regularly in order to know the will of the Father. Fidelity to our life of prayer. And even if we pray, there are many things that we need to do yet. St. John of the Cross calls this his counsel. First of all, he said, in order to be successful in this imitation of Jesus, renounce and remain empty of any satisfaction that is not for the honor and glory of God. Now, when I was reading this, I said, oh my God, if I drink soft drinks that is nice, that means that is sensible. If I look at the sunset, that is also sensible. So, does it mean to say I will not live anymore as a human being? No, he did not mean that. He said, he is really referring, he said, change your focus from self to Jesus. Now, you seek for the presence of God. I will tell you my own experience of this because this is how I discover it. It's a very, very, very simple way. Now, when I was looking at that, I said, how can I do this? So anyway, I was in charge in our Carmel to open the gate during the time that the sisters are having their nap, because Carmelites are supposed to have nap noon so that we will really pray well. We will not sleep during prayer. Then I am the one in charge of opening the door during the time 12 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we live near a school in Zamboanga. So 12 to 1, the children have nothing to do in the school. So they go to the Carmelites and keep on ringing and ringing the bell. And here I am, who is in charge of opening, getting very, very angry because I have to dress up, I have to go to the gate, and I have to open. And when I reach the gate, all the children run away already. So I said one day, you will see, because I'm not going to sleep today. I will stay there in the gate. The moment you are going to ring, I will really catch you and wring your necks. So I was there at the back of the door. The moment they rang, I opened the door and ran after them. All my veils were flying. I forgot I'm a nun. And we are living in the boulevard. I realized I'm a nun because, it's across the boulevard. Everybody was looking at me. And I said, oh my God, I'm a nun. So I must behave like a nun. So I went back like a nun, never catching the children. And I am very, very careful to form good habits because constant repetition of the same act will form habit. Once it is a habit, you are no longer conscious. You will do it. And there are many, many nuns who are already angry all the time, so I'm not going to add one. So I said, no, I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to get angry. So what will I do? If you look at the 3rd to the 4th, in the 3rd level, your way of facing reality is your own human way. So I did it in my own human way. I ran after the children. That's the human way. But then I realized it will not help. So I said, every time that bell will ring, I will believe it is Jesus calling me to duty. And so, what happens now is this. Every time the bell will ring, I said, I believe. You think that is imagination? No, that's the truth. Nothing happens in this life without the permission of God. That's the reason why when you are in the 4th level, you are not disturbed. Because habitually, you believe this is God's will. Now, many people will ask me, sister, you're always talking about contemplation. What does it mean to become a contemplative? So I give them a very simple. I said, a contemplative is a person who lives in 2 different levels in a very realistic way. In the level of the senses, what I hear, what I see, what I feel, but also in the level of meanings, in the level of choices. Now, I'll give you an example. Suppose you slap me. I will really feel that because I'm also living in the level of the senses. And maybe I would also like to slap you. But I'm not going to stay there. I will go into another level. And I will ask myself, why did God, who loves me with an infinite love, allow this person to slap me? What is in me that needs to be purified? That is why that person will not become disturbed. But she feels it. These are people who live in very because sometimes we think that when they are already very prayerful, they will not anymore feel the pain. No, they are even more sensitive. And yet they do not dwell there. They go in another level. So that's the reason why in this kind of, so I said, every time that bell will ring, it is Jesus calling me to duty. Situation do not change. The bell is still ringing. But I told Jesus, I know it's you, but you always come at the wrong time. One day, I was just ironing. And because it is a native iron, I put their charcoal and all of that, and then the bell rang. I see, Jesus, I know it is you, but as usual, you come at the wrong time. Because I just put the charcoal, and now, when I come back, there will be no more fire. I have to build another fire. So anyway, I went and I saw a beggar. But it is a conscious effort. It is Jesus. This is the active discipline. Trying to make what is natural and human into supernatural. It is your own human effort. Now, if you don't pray, you will not be able to do this. Because you're not conscious of what you're doing. So, all the time saying it's Jesus, it's really Jesus who is here. And when I saw the beggar, the more. He said, as long as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. You know, it's because we have no faith. If we have faith, we cannot shout at anybody. Because this person is Jesus. If we have faith, we cannot talk against other people because we are talking against Jesus. It's because our faith is only human, it's only natural that we can do many things against our neighbor. We can backbite them, you can do this and we can do that because it's human. I think it's only he is the only one. But no, Jesus said, as long as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. We don't realize the impact of that because we are not living at a deeper level, in the level of meanings, in the level of choices. Now, you might say, sister, that is very, very difficult because you are a human being. You're right. But the first decision, you are not responsible for it. You are not. It is the second. You know, I remember that there was a lady that she was asked to share something. And you know, she's a poor woman. At the beginning, she wanted to say like that. But then she realized that, you know, this is not good because God said, love one another and all of that. So immediately. So I tell, you are right. The first decision is yours. Do not decide on that. Because that is always selfish. Because it's always I, me, and myself. Do you know why? When God created the human person, the Blessed Trinity possesses us. But when our first parents committed, we ejected God out of us and we put sin in our hearts. So that is why instead of God possessing our heart, it is I, me, and myself. I am always the one. So if you really want to know if you have grown in your life of prayer, there is one. Have you grown unselfish. Because even if you pray the whole day and you remain selfish, always doing what you like, then I am sorry, you are not at all living a genuine life of prayer. It is always dying to self, dying to our egoistic inclination. And so that's the reason why we do not grow in our life of prayer. It's because I, me, and myself all the time. But Jesus was not like that. So John of the Cross is saying that we have to die to ourselves. Now, it's not because all the time that we are like that. He said, if you change your focus from yourself to Jesus, then you will succeed. Now, when I tried to examine my conscience, because I was very good to that man who was really old man who was poor, and he said, I want to eat. And so I went to the refrigerator, and then I look, and then I said, I'm not going to give Jesus a food that is cold, and so I hate it. And then all the time I was very nice to the man. I am not imagining. That is the gospel. As long as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. And if you remember, on the last judgment, it is said again that, come, blessed of my Father. I was hungry and you gave me to eat. I was lonely and you comforted me. And the other people were saying, Lord, where? We did not see you. We did not do this to you. And he said, as long as you did it to the least of my brethren, you did it to me. It is impossible to be charitable if we do not pray. Because that is not our nature. Man is by nature, because of original sin, is really selfish. That is why we need to pray, so that the Lord will transform us. So, John of the Cross is saying, change your focus. Then I examine my conscience. I examine my actions. I said, how true, no? I was not thinking that I am going to mortify, I'm going to do this. I was only focusing on our Lord, and all that I did was perfect. So, when he said that, in order to be successful in this imitation, renounce and remain empty. This is the discipline. Now, for example, if you are a toddler, many of us are toddler, let me talk about the Filipino culture. The Filipino culture, especially men, I'm sorry to say this, they are spoiled by their mothers. That is why most men do not really grow up. Filipino, I'm talking about Filipino, no? Because, and many Filipinas will complain, my husband is like that. I tell you, unless you change your ways of dealing your sons, this will continue forever. Deal with them. How do you deal? Well, you pray. I don't know. But the Lord will inspire you how to deal with your sons. Because many mothers spoil their sons. Many mothers will come to me, sister, my son is already finished high school. He cannot really decide what he will take. And I always say, how can he decide? He cannot even decide the color of his pants. You are the one deciding it. Allow them. Now, let me talk about the second stage. Allow them to assert. Young people, you're already old. Maybe you have already grandchildren. So, no more children. No more. What can you do? So, anyway, train them, because at this stage in their life, 2 years old, 3 years old, we are already forming their conscience. Can you imagine? So they will always do what they like, but allow them to do it. Otherwise, they will not also grow up. They will become very dependent. But all the time, guide them. So, the example that I gave is always this. For example, Your son will say, Mommy, I like to eat mango. Mango is good, all right? You give one slice. But because the identity of the 3-year-old is, I am what I feel freely. Therefore, I will do whatever I like. So when you give the mango, because it tastes so good, he will like, give me more money. Or give me more mango. So what will you do? Tell him no more. One slice is enough because it is going to make your stomach ache. He will cry because he really likes, that's his identity, to do what he likes. Now, if you are a good mother, and if you know the effect of that, you will say, I say no, and it is no. Why? Because you are forming the conscience. But if you will say no, and then after it, sige na, you eat na kayo, you're very say, the child will become ambivalent later on. And he will think that if he cries and he will do that, good, because he's still very small, he's only eating mango. But suppose if he like a woman or he likes something, that is why there are plenty of crimes. Because they want what they like. That is already the formation of conscience. I'm always telling that people who are already married, and then there is already divorce now because they fall in love with another woman. And I said, you are even priests and nuns, but we are already committed. Why? Because I am what I feel freely. Emotionally, I can be the superior of the monastery. I have many degrees, but emotionally, I am only 3 years old. There is no integration. It is the dark night that will integrate us if you do not give in to it. Because that is how God will make you mature. It is the dark night. In the dark night. Now, the next thing that is really what John of the Cross said, look at it as if it is Jesus. Now, there is another way. Another form of self-denial is face the reality of the here and the now. Now, I am giving a talk to you. I may give plenty of talks, and maybe I will say, no, I will just give myself, not so much because I'm also very sleepy. No, I have to give everything that I have now. Why? Because even if I give talks, hundreds, the talk that I'm giving now at 20 minutes to 4, and this date will never come back. And whatever I have not given my all year, that is something that I will have to answer before God when I meet Him face to face. It will never pass our way again. Now, you are listening to me. You are giving your all. Give our all of the here and the now that is facing reality. Of the here. This is a very, very difficult self-denial. But it will make you move on from what is only human and natural into the values of Jesus. Because it is always dying to self all the time. Face the reality of the here and the now. Do not shape another reality. That is the reason why there is plenty of problem in the world. Because we shape another reality. We are not faithful to the reality of the here and the now. Now, there are 4 ways of facing reality. Number 1, the modern man, very arrogant. That's why we're always, we get sick of cancer, we get sick of high blood pressure. Why? Because we want another reality. For example, I am driving a car, and then there's plenty of traffic. I'm very angry already. But what can you do? You cannot fly, or you cannot do anything, but you are angry. Why? Because this is a reality that I cannot face. Face the reality. Why? Faith tells you that every reality is designed by God. That's why people in the 4th mansion, are very much at peace because their faith is already supernatural. You know, when I went abroad, after 2 days, I was also running like all of them. Inko, what happened to me, man? Because everybody abroad is running. They will eat there in the car. They will do it. Why is it like that? Now, because you are always running after time, no? Now, do not shape another reality. Modern man is arrogant. You know where I discovered this? It's very easy. I was in charge of list. You know, when there is a message, I am in charge of answering the phone. And every time there is a message, I say, excuse me, ha, because I have no pen and paper here. I will go and take. So, right. So, I put the paper and pencil. When the phone rang, the paper and pencil disappeared. So I said, who took the paper and pencil here? Nobody will answer. Everybody is deaf. So I get very angry, very angry. Why is it? Then finally I said, one day I was looking for the pencil. I could not find it because I'm angry. Then the pencil is just there. Do you notice that when you're looking for something, you cannot find it? Why? Because you're already very impatient. So, what happens? Modern man has plenty of high blood pressure because we want to shape another reality apart from the reality that God is giving to us. That's the reason why if I have not discovered this, I must be a wreck already. Because, you know, they will tell me, there are plenty of people, sister, they will come at this time, and then, at 8 o'clock, they're here already. 11 o'clock na, nobody is there pa, and there are 1 or 2 only. I'm not disturbed. These are the people that God sent to me. I'm going to give a seminar, even if there are only 2 people. It doesn't. Why? Everything in this life is designed by God. So every reality is designed by God. You are not disturbed because God designs all of this. Now, the next is, contemplatives are not disturbed. And I'll give you the example of Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. Saint Teresa, she was told to write her autobiography. Very early in the morning, she has also many ideas already. And at night, she went to the place where the lamps are really kept. And a sister took it by mistake. If she's not a contemplative, she will go to the sister and said, Sister, may I ask my lamp? But she did not. She said, I went back to my room. And in the darkness, I saw a tiny light. That in order to be true to my vow of poverty, I need to be deprived of what I need at the moment. She saw the meaning. That's why I said, go to the world of meanings and you will not be disturbed.